Tango 1 at the top, we are at Pop-Up Vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action. Find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're doing that to the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
All right, welcome to the Tango 1 podcast. I am Tony Smith, former SWAT team leader and the owner of the Garage Gym at Tango 1 Solutions. I'm joined today by my good friend, Casey Wright, also a trainer at the Garage Gym, a fireman here in Amherstburg, Ontario, and a part-time stuntman. And today we brought in our third host, our co-host, Jimmy Mack, Coach Jimmy Mack. Everybody knows this guy, legendary coach around Windsor. The Tango 1 podcast is designed to help everybody here take action against their weaknesses and their problems. Simply put, we want you to do more and be more. Before we get going, I want to read in this ad. This episode of the Tango 1 podcast is sponsored by, as everyone is, by Stephen Kidd. So Stephen Kidd, financial advisor at Edward Jones. Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized for you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation change? When you work with Stephen Kidd, your local Edward Jones financial advisor, he focuses on what's important to you. You'll work together and use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. And you'll partner to help your strategy stay on track. Contact Stephen Kidd today at 519-734-8599. That's 519-734-8599. Edward Jones, Canadian Investor Protection Fund.
Good. Let's get started.
Yeah, let's go.
Today's podcast, no official guest, I guess, besides from the co-host, co-host. And we're just going to go over a few things. We got some questions from a few clients and a few fans, I guess, of the show, potentially.
Yeah, we got some fans.
Later on. And other than that, might cover some current events and things going on, and that's just about it. So let's get started into that.
Yeah, we normally hit this thing pretty with a little bit of an idea what we're doing. Casey's the only one who knows what's going on today, so Jimmy Mack and I are here to...
I made the slides today.
To get Jeopardy.
So who knows where to go.
Let's
like
do it, Trebek.
Jazz music. We're just going to play off one another and improv the whole thing.
But the whole thing is just kind of like, let's find out what's going on in people's lives. Let's see, maybe talk about the gym, how things are starting to see some light at the end of this tunnel with everything going on as the rest of the province is entering phase 3 right now, which is good. So gyms are close to the edge, or in some parts of the province are opening up now. We will be very soon. But throughout that, everyone's been working out. And the one I want to highlight right now, Jimmy, you've been going pretty hard lately, right? So I know that you were in the gym the other day. We're filming for about 20 minutes trying to get a muscle up.
Yeah, failed in that one.
What's going on? What are you doing right now? You're into some sort of competition? What's happening?
Yeah, I was just in this, it's called Masters Fitness Collective, and it was a contest, a bunch of online workouts that you do. You video yourself doing it, you send it in, and obviously they rank order, who finished first, second, third, and there was a whole pile of people in the competition, and one of the events you had to do that one was where I was practicing the muscle ups for, was power cleans, burpees, and box jumps, and then give you a time limit on a prescribed number of repetitions, and then the remaining time you saw how many muscle ups you could do. So I failed at the muscle ups, but I did actually very well in the rest of the competition. So it was from people all over the world. So I actually finished 13th. So I was pretty happy with that. So I proud of myself with that one. So I was battling through that for a week. I always got to do stuff to just keep my mind focused in the right direction, so to speak.
That's wild, man. So Masters was 50 and over, correct?
This was 50 to 54 division, yeah.
So it's pretty wild. Jimmy Mack, if you guys follow him, there's not a week that goes by I don't get a text from you with some kind of astonishing number, and not even for a guy your age, for just a guy in general. So that's pretty impressive. I know Jimmy Mack, we plan on ETS. Jimmy's an advisor at ETS, starting a little bit of a master's group there, really kind of try and inspire some other dudes your age and higher to either get in shape or to get in the best shape of their lives? Because I think you might be in the best shape of your life right now, right?
I think I am from even like a body fat standpoint. My weight's down a little bit, and I feel really good. And I think when you talk with, masters athletes, and you can define masters with whatever age group you want to, but especially when you get over 50, there's some precautions you have to take. You can't do. There's certain movements that you want to avoid.
Like muscle ups?
Muscle ups, yeah. And then you'd be stupid like me.
I still think it's there.
Yeah, I think I could get one if I practiced enough.
Thing.
I could possibly.
We gotta
I
send
could
you
get
to
one.
go see Bobby or something. Somebody with a little bit of gymnastics experience. Send me and Casey, who literally muscle ourselves up.
Yeah.
Casey and I can do them, but it's
Just pull
literally
for
a
the bar.
muscle up. It's like pull as hard as you can and then push up
Yeah.
like you're going over a fence.
But there's one of the exercises that we wouldn't prescribe for, to be honest, anybody other than doing a competition.
Yeah,
if you're an
it's-
athlete, there's no sense of doing a muscle up. You get no athletic development by doing a muscle up. The only reason you want to do a muscle up is you can say, fuck yeah, I can do a muscle up. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot of purpose to it, but it's fun to just try new things.
Yeah, man, competition calls for it. You got to do it. A testing
Yeah.
calls for it. You got to do it.
For the 2 times in your life when someone asks, can you do a muscle up?
Yeah,
And you
totally.
can say, yes, I can.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. So one thing you just in that, a topic you kind of hit is, and I think it might have been today actually, I received a message from one of our online clients, and within theirs they had some injuries going on and stuff like that. And one thing they mentioned was like, oh, and I'm also in my 50s and I'm out of shape. And I instantly messaged them back being like, the age thing doesn't mean anything.
No.
If you're out of shape, that's something, and that's something you can work on. But age is just a number, and I think like you're a prime example of that, is that like being at a higher age does not mean that it's time to shut down, adapt your workouts. But so what do you do? I know we've talked about it before, but what are some more specific things that you do that you wouldn't maybe be prescribing to some of your,
I will still
teenage clients?
I'll to be honest, so I still in pretty good, obviously pretty good shape. I struggle with any overhead movement where my palm is facing away from me. So if my hand is pronated and I'm trying to drive something over my head, even at my age and being in relatively decent shape, that will hurt my shoulder. So I avoid those movements unless I absolutely have to do them. If I'm going to do any overhead movements, I'm going to have my palm facing my cheekbone, so my shoulder is in a much more natural position. So there's an example of, an activity that I wouldn't really prescribe to anybody, over 50 years old or even really over 40 years old. It becomes very hard on your shoulder joint if you, externally rotate your palm like that. So there's an example. But as with everybody else, you have to build that foundation of strength and mobility at the same time. And if you're, like the question said, if you're somebody that's out of shape, obviously there's a process of getting in shape, doing, some cardiovascular movements, some high intensity training, some strength training, combining it with mobility and small bit of explosive movements. And then to further on that, if you are sort of a detrained individual, I would avoid explosive movements like the plague until you have built a foundation of strength and movement quality and efficiency before doing something explosive. So a box jump, for example, I wouldn't have an older person doing a box jump unless they've demonstrated a level of strength and movement efficiency, because there's just so many things that could go wrong. An Achilles tendon, for example. And as you age, you see the number of people that tear their Achilles tendon, and you just don't want to see that, and the recovery is so long. So
even just a fall, like a
Yeah.
fall could be detrimental. Like my mother is in here; she's 60 something years old. I won't say exactly
Yeah.
how old, but she fell jogging a couple years ago, and like that broken wrist to recover at her age is just so much longer. So like, do no
Absolutely.
harm, right? That's
Yeah,
what we talk
do no
about.
harm.
Risk reward and
Yeah.
being smart about your training. And
yeah,
smart
it's,
about,
it's like investing money. Like, there's a lot of, if you're going to have a lot of risk, there better be a tremendous reward for that. And there's no magical exercises that are going to, if I just do this exercise, there's going to be magical rewards at the end of the rainbow. So you have to minimize the risk and do no harm all the time.
That was another plug for Stephen Kidd, financial advisor at Edward Jones.
Yeah, totally.
we're covering insurance today and all
Yeah.
the bases.
Nice.
Good. So one of the questions that came up, and so since we're kind of on the fitness topic, we'll stick to that. One of the topics that came in is just like, when lifting heavy weights, why is it so important to stay within the recommended RPE and not fail a rep? So if you're sending out a program to someone, I know we preach it all the time, is like, don't fail today because that's not what we're after. Why is that such? Why do we preach that?
And it's something that absolutely, you know, that from seeing me in here, it irritates the fuck out of me, is watching people constantly lift weights they can't move. So there is some benefit to like a negative. Negative, you know, if you don't know what a negative is, that's where you're going to be in the lockout position generally, and then slowly lower that weight down to your chest if we're talking for a bench press. With somebody helping you and you're barely resisting that weight, but you can't really lift it back up on your own without some help. So now, but in my opinion, and from, you know, a lot of the training, the West Side Way and all those things, is weights you're not moving aren't really getting you stronger. So I'd much rather be at that 80 to 90 percentile. Like when we talk max effort, we mean max effort for us here is like 80 to 90%, right? So an RPE of 8 or 9. And that is going to get you so much stronger. The max effort method is like an incredible method, but max effort means within your form, like no form technique breakdowns, right? So if you're doing that, you're moving those weights at 90% once a week, upper, once a week, lower. I mean, it's been tested on, what was it, the Bulgarians or the Russians?
Yeah.
Like, by these guys who have 800-pound deadlifts, you get stronger. I know we've applied that here with our normal members, and it's a fight sometimes, but our guys are getting much better. I say guys because generally the guys who are putting too much on the bar, and generally women aren't putting enough. So it's very important for your muscles growth to actually be stimulating the muscle, right?
And I think that's something like within the programming is something that I know we work really hard on and learning and building that information about. That you talk like, yeah, it is an issue with guys in here. I find all the time because there's that ego bit of it, and it's like, okay, where I'm supposed to be at 65%, but this feels light. So instead of me doing these 10 quick reps, let me throw 50 more pounds on there. They're gonna go slower, but there's so much benefit that people don't realize in that explosive movement and moving that bar faster. Even though it doesn't feel heavy every lift you do, there's such like a benefit to it because now you're not killing yourself. And
you're trying to move heavy weights fast, and you're trying to move light weights fast at some points, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and not just the actual fails, it's what I see a lot, even maybe the bigger problem. I don't know if you see this, you guys aren't doing the compound lifts as much, I guess.
Oh yeah, we do tons of compound lifts.
So is the the joint placement. So not having joint placement on a bench press or on a squat, you're just not, like joint placement, I say it all the time, joint placement dictates muscle stimulus. So if you're not turning that pec on to get it stronger and those triceps in the right position, the lats tucked, you're just wearing out those ligaments. And then when you get to be Jimmy and you're in the masters division, you're trying to bench press, like that's when you're going to get more and more issues. So the idea is, let's set ourselves up. In the garage gym, we're not here to win for tomorrow. We're here to be like Jimmy and to be like my mom and to be training till we go into our deathbed, right?
Yeah, and to just jump on that topic too, and not to bring up, you know, do no harm and not get injured, but the closer to your RM, which is your repetition max, your heaviest amount of weight you can lift, the closer you get to that, the more likely you are to get injured. Or not just repetition max, but speed max. So whether you're sprinting as hard as you can or lifting as heavy as you can, the closer you get to that, the more likelihood that injury can take place. So you're never gonna get injured, you know, really going for just a nice easy jog. But if you go sprint, like I'm never gonna pull my hamstring jogging, but I can pull my hamstring going for 100% sprint because I'm getting closer to that edge of the graph. And the closer you get to that edge of the graph, the higher the incidence of injury.
And I guess that's trusting your coach or your trainer or whatever to play with those numbers, right? Like for you to improve as an athlete especially, which is what you guys are all about, is to get better as an athlete, you need to start pushing that line.
Yes,
like you said,
can't cross
if
over.
I want to get faster, I'm not going to go do sprints every single day to the point where I'm going to pull a hamstring and now I'm out. Now my season starts in 3 weeks and I'm done.
Yes.
Right? But I'm going to work up to that so day one of that season starts, now I'm at my peak and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's like cooking you can put something in the microwave or put something in the oven and crank the temperature up as high as you can possibly get it. The food's gonna not cook any faster. It's not gonna taste any better. You can't do things too fast. You gotta trust the process, and God forbid you get injured, now you've set yourself back a long, long way.
Right, I think what gets lost is there's a difference between testing your 1 rep max and working at a max effort.
Yeah.
So like texting your 1 rep max, like legitimately you might fail because you're trying to establish something you've never done before. And it's a test. So when we're testing, that's a peak. I mean, we do use testing, but in here really we use testing at an RPE of 9 anyway.
Yeah.
Like we're not truly.
You're guessing at
so
what
when we're
not
testing
guessing,
to
but-
establish your percent, so we can use the charts and all those things. We're testing you not quite at a max. If you were in a competition, now you're testing that max, and that's something like I always say, like Jimmy's just said about cooking, but like we're on a ramp, right, and we're gonna try to touch that ceiling, and I'm gonna touch that ceiling for just one rep.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna crash down, and my training's got to bring it back down, and eventually we just keep raising the floor with those max effort training sessions rather than testing sessions. And then the next time I choose to ramp it up for a test, that should go up by. I mean, our goal in here is to go up by half a freaking pound, man. Not like 5 pounds, 10 pounds. Those are easy at the start, but once you've got an established number, it's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, there's no place I can't recall even one single incident where at ETS that we would ever program, a 1 rep max in anything.
And even that, like, I know we do it with sports like football, you do that, and you test, though, you program to hit that the day of the test. So it's worked into that 6-week or 12-week program. So on that day, again, providing you feel great, and that's how it is, that's when you're going to hit that test. So if you're 10 or 10 pounds below that the week before, but you're still, you're tired and you're 20 pounds less because you're exhausted, that's okay. It's when you start pushing that, people are just going to get hurt from it.
Yeah, and I would argue with anybody that even doing a 1 rep max test for a sports performance-based idea is not the smartest thing in the world.
Yeah, they really ditched that in a lot of sports testing, a lot of not Westside Tactical, a lot of tactical testing and military and policing.
Yeah.
They really abandoned the 1 rep max, or even the max. It's almost just as dangerous to lift 225 as many times as you can. If you're going to get to that exhaustion, we all know, anybody really, you start to get up there in your reps and your lats start to let go, your shoulders start to rise, the ligaments start to be more strained. So I think we've beaten that one to death.
Yeah, just one more thing on that, though. I think that what you have to be careful of is when you go on the internet and look and say, okay, the University of Alabama, this is what they do for their workout training program, and this is what they test at. The thing that people don't understand is the guy that's the tight end at the University of Alabama, if that dude gets hurt, the guy that's the backup to him is still a 5-star All-American, football player. So they care, but they don't really care because the backup almost in most cases is just as good as the starter. And it's almost survival of the fittest there. That's why you see in the NFL, guys go to the NFL and they're worth millions of dollars. They never do that.
Yeah, and I guess on the topic of exhaustion a little bit, one of the other questions is just some people work out twice a day. Is that beneficial? Is overtraining a thing? I know there's a few different avenues to this. So what's your take on training more than once a day and reasons behind it?
Yeah, for me, training more than once a day does serve a purpose. But I believe it's almost like accessory driven, recovery driven. That's what I would program in 2-a-days. And usually if we're getting to 2-a-days, we're getting for some specific reason why we need to amp that training up to 2-a-days. But with that person, and we're talking about people in the garage gym. If we're talking about somebody in the NFL, they're also doing a lot of things between those training sessions that are not happening here for our athletes. Our garage gym athletes or ETS athletes, for the most part, aren't getting their stem, and they're not getting their ice baths in. The recovery's happening for those workouts. And overtraining is certainly a thing because muscle doesn't grow if you're not resting it, right? Nothing's happening. The growth, the testosterone, all those things, especially in us men, are dumping if you're not resting. Muscle grows in sleep.
Yep. And same thing. You can do 2 sessions a day provided that one is intense and then the other is mobility, like you said, relaxation, recovery, ice bath, that type of stuff. To do 2 heavy lifts in a day, unless you are on some sort of drug that's probably illegal by the World Anti-Doping Agency, very few people can recover in enough time to do 2 lifts a day. So if people tell me, it's the same thing. People say, I spent 3 hours in the gym. Well, if you spend 3 hours in the gym, you ain't working very fucking hard, okay? Because you can't work hard for 3 hours. Your body just won't allow it to. And even with the NFL guys and the NHL guys, if they program 2 practices a day, 1 practice is pretty intense or very intense. And then the second practice that day is no pads. We're just going to kind of run through things at 70, 75%. It's not the same intensity. You can't work out twice a day with that intensity, unless you are the Bulgarians or the East Germans back in the 80s and 90s that were full of sauce and training 5 times a day.
And I think, that's a big misconception. I think even with that question, in the way of like, people think sometimes, I train 2 or 3 times a day means I do my max deadlift in the morning and then I do my max squat in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's
when it's
nonsense.
like, no, I might lift heavy in the morning and then in the afternoon I'm doing yoga, I'm doing mobility, or
go for a 20-minute walk or bike good on the bike.
2 days for sports or football. Like, our morning practice would be intense. You'd be in full pads and you'd be hitting and doing that.
Yeah.
Later in that afternoon, guys are beat up. You obviously have, like you talked about, the difference between working out twice in a day is between those 3 hours, you've been in physio, you've been recovering, you've been icing. And even that secondary practice now is probably just helmets and jerseys, and you're just not walk through, but slow the pace down. You're not hitting, it's more technical. And
it's one of those things, when you work out really hard in the morning, your central nervous system gets depleted. Unless you do some things to rest, recover, rejuvenate your central nervous system, you can't possibly re-engage or ramp that central nervous system up a second time in the same day.
I think people really undervalue the central nervous system and how it recovers. Like even contrast training, you see so much of it on Instagram, and then you see people mimic it. Contrast training, for me, if I was to define that, that's like, a typical contrast training would be like a heavy squat, and then a max broad jump or a fast sled sprint.
Yeah,
that's very good. You get a good spike in there, but like that's something that we would be programming in here maybe twice in 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
right. And it's generally like you'll see us do a bench press with a jump, but we're not really using the same and the jumps aren't going to be max effort jumps. So like.
And you got to keep the rep scheme of that explosive thing lower than like 5, because if you get over 5, you're not training explosivity anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And then with that, like your direction there, Tony, fits into another question. Is like, now you're talking about gym specific. So bringing in our gym where there's people of all ages, people with different goals. Some people are in here to get really strong. Some people are in here to maintain. Some people are here just to work out. Now, how do you work that into, the actual question is, when deciding what direction to take your gym, how do you find balance with your clients who want to be different training methods? So light lifting versus heavy lifting, or as they put it, gazelles versus meatheads, which might not be the best.
Who's this? Go. You can leave this on anonymous.
I believe it's from Mike Scott.
Michael Scott,
who is one of the top meatheads.
One of my top meatheads, and one of the guys who's made the greatest gains in transformation of body weight. I mean, the guy. I feel like when he was in here, I won't say what I think his body weight was, but for sure his deadlift was less than his body weight, and we've seen him cut probably 40 pounds since he's joined us, and his deadlift just fucking skyrocket. Mm-hmm. And he's the guy on my tails every day. He's the guy I'm looking at his numbers. And you said you wanted to catch his bench press on the way up. So for guys like Mike and for girls like let's say Brooke, your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay. We throw that in every episode, Brooke. That's for you. Okay. So not that Brooke doesn't like to lift heavy, but let's just use those two as examples. So when we go around at one at the garage gym, we're training for general physical preparedness, which is what I believe is what we train. It comes from my first responders background, the West Side Tactical background. We're training to be like ready to do shit, get out of bed and be able to do anything, right? That your life demands.
Yeah.
And not necessarily testing. So like when Mike goes into a strength program for a test, totally different. So let's just talk about everyday garage gym training. One, we go around and you want people to be happy because then they'll come back. So from a business platform, but also just from a training platform, the most likelihood to succeed is if you enjoy what you're doing.
Yep.
So Mike likes to lift heavy, and let's say, for example, Brooke doesn't like that. All we were able to do in here, we just programmed 2 methods. Like the main lift, where with Mike is maybe going to be an 8x3, where the main lift with Brooke could be like a 4x20. And we're going to really focus tempo with Brooke, slow her down, get her into a good rep range. Whereas Mike is going to be lifting heavier with closer to this is on a typical Monday strength day. Mike will be lifting heavier closer to like an 80 to a 90%, looking for whatever the chart is. Yeah. I'm sure back of your hand, but probably 18 to 24 reps in there, right? And that's how we kind of go. So we're kind of gauging off reps and percentages. So if you follow that chart, you'd find Brooke, if we're going to lift it 60 times, it's going to be at this percentage, and that's how we kind of gauge it to keep everybody happy.
And the big matcher, I think, the big thing that I think gets missed sometimes is the effort portion of it. Because like doing those exact same things, if Mike's working at 3 reps, Brooke's working at 20, guarantee you by Mike's 3rd rep and Brooke's 20 rep, they're outputting the exact same energy and the exact same, to an extent, the exact same power to that, right? And that's what I think's missed. But the magic I find of the gym is that fuels you, is seeing that 20th rep by this person or that 3rd rep of that person, same expressions on their face.
Yeah, totally.
And so that's what drives you to
and
go.
20 might be a little bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
We're probably talking like 12 to 15, but yes, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think with us too, it's, you know, I have a little bit of meathead in me too, and but I think I probably got a lot, but I think it has to be progressive as well. So once you can't be a meathead too early, unless you built sort of that foundation and, you know, on a structure. Yes. But once you've built that structure, yeah, you can be a meathead. And then you be a meathead for a little while. But the longer you're a meathead, the crazier chance it is that you get injured. And then if you have to kind of tailor that a little bit and pick your spots as to when you're going to be a meathead. You can't be a meathead 7 days a week, but you can be a meathead 2 to 3 days a week and really get after some things and then make sure that you're doing some recovery and doing some smart things. Not that being a meathead's not smart, but doing some stuff that's going to counterbalance that meatheadness about you.
But that really goes both ways because, you know, we really have 2 styles of people. Like the women have really stepped up their lifting, their love for lifting, and it's been so awesome. And it's been
female meatheads.
Yeah, It's been one of the really, I don't know, inspiring things for Danny and I, because that was always a goal for us. But and this goes for guys and girls the same, is like on our conditioning days, those like absolutely hit days, like those super high intensity days, those again, just like contrast training, destroy your CNS. So we don't need to hit those all the time. And I feel like people always think they need to be at revving that engine at like 99 when we don't need to be there. Like bringing that down and doing some steady state cardio, mixing in more accessory work, more rehab, prehab, and then throwing in a couple short hit workouts, maybe 1 a week, 3-4 a month is really going to get you where you want to go. Mixing that in with some good strength training, in my opinion, is the best way to get to the lean body that people want. Like, you know, you're going to have like, you know, the marathon runner body or the powerlifter body. And most people want somewhere in the middle of that. And I think that's the best way to get you there.
Yeah. And with us, I think, especially I've had a long history of working with high school kids. It's with high school kids that you're trying to pull the reins back on the boys and saying, okay, you don't need to have that much weight on. Let's do things properly, for God's sakes. You look like an idiot doing that because you're all over the place.
Building that foundation.
Building the
then
foundation.
Because I'll definitely, like, when it came to high school for us, like, we had Tommy Annett, who was our strength and conditioning coach, right?
Great dude.
And he was like grade 9 and 10. Looking back on it now is exactly where he was at. He was looking at foundation. He was getting us set up for that. And then now you're grade 11, 12. Now you know what you're doing. Now it's time to build that muscle, build that. And he was preparing all of us for university, and the guys who had potential, he was really on us to do that. And it's crazy, that exact thing is like, at the start, work your way into it. Build that foundation first before building that muscle. And that's the same for both, right? Whether you want to be super strong or you want to be that lean look, you have to get the foundation right and then play with the rep scheme. And
with girls it's on the flip side, they want to stay in that foundation thing for a long time, except for the elite athlete girls. The elite athlete girls, they're looking to rev the engine all the time. But the common, regular 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl, they will be content and comfortable to stay in that. And if you can encourage them, okay, we're going to lift a little heavy now. Don't be afraid to lift heavy. And once they start to do that, they're starting to get a little confidence in themselves. They're like, oh my God, I'm a badass. And I'll make a joke with the high school kids. I'm like, when I teach, the co-ed class, I'm like, we're looking to build a babe in here, but it's not the babe that you're talking about. We're looking to build a badass bitch every day. And that idea that I can come in here as a girl and come in here and just grind and get some confidence and get a little swagger to me. The change that you'll see in the personality of a girl in the high school weight room is much more than the boy in the weight room. The girl gets authentic confidence. Sometimes the boy some of them get authentic confidence and some of them kind of get douchey. You know, they turn into a douchebag when they get strong. But the girls, it's just the confidence that they get from lifting weights and lifting heavy weights is transformational to them.
It's funny that you say that. Danny did a post like maybe an hour ago before we came in here. Danny's my wife and the head of the female training program here. And it was a picture of a bunch of your Casey's teenage program, our teen girls, which are trained right alongside the boys here. And the picture, I think the caption was, "Stop teaching your young girls to wear glass slippers and start teaching them how to smash glass ceilings." And
love that.
I think that's been one of the coolest things that we, and Casey, you got to take should be given a lot of credit for what you've done with those young girls. And then, putting people like Nikki and Marcella and Steph, and Danny in front of them that are proud women that carry a little bit of muscle on them and that are damn proud of it.
I think that's a big part.
Still able to wear a dress and, but also to lift a lot of weights and to throw people around if they need to.
Yeah, well, that's a huge thing is like I feel like, well, it just is like girls get scared to put on a bit of muscle because they think they're going to get that muscly or big look to them when it's like absolutely not. One, right? You got to work really hard and specific to get biceps in that, like to get to that look that you think you're going to get to. But it's the big thing is like you see the confidence in those girls like you're talking about that you see like week one, and a lot of them are athletes, or I find more the girls who aren't athletes, you see them when they start and they're very shy and they're, intimidated by the group. But luckily we have a great group of young girls who kind of take them under their reins and they can see that almost as a role model. But you see them a few weeks down the line, a few months down the line, now they're stronger. And like whether they want to admit it or not, they lift that extra 20 or 30 pounds. And for a split second, you see that smirk on their face and they're jacked, and you can just tell that confidence carries over to everything.
Everything. Think back when you guys were in high school too. All the best girl athletes, and I've said this to numerous people, think of all the best girl athletes in the city and when you were in school, anytime you can. I'm going to say 98% of them were all academic students and all did above average in school. And now go to the boys. The boys, it's a coin flip. If you're a great athlete, it has no bearing whether you're going to be good in school or bad in school, failing or passing, on a roll or not. But the girls, because they're doing something that's outside, now it's more commonplace, but they're breaking barriers a little bit. They're playing hockey, they're playing, aggressive basketball and stuff. And it translates to school, it translates to confidence, and it affects girls from a confidence standpoint and school-wise, probably more so than it does boys, because boys, like I say, it's a crapshoot. Just because you're a big and great athlete doesn't mean you're good in school, but almost all great athletes that are girls.
Why you look at me when you say that?
Yeah, I'm looking at all three of us.
Yeah,
actually, there's a mirror.
There's just a mirror.
There's pretty good athlete.
Three people, but I completely agree, because I look back at the girls I went to high school with, and the girls who played basketball and volleyball, like I'm lucky to be friends with a lot of them, and they're all extremely successful. They're nurses, they're doctors, they're in med school. Like it's just like that confidence carries on so much past the weight room, and I think that's just like something that people underestimate is looking like, oh, I'm going to sign my kid up for a workout. Yeah. And it's like, well, no, you're signing them up to learn these lessons. One thing that I think is important is you're learning how to like put in hard work. Which is a big thing. Learning how to potentially fail at times and then overcome that. And those are the ones who you see overcome that and now
struggle.
Carry that.
You got to enjoy struggling a little bit. And if you don't enjoy the struggle, you'll never get anything in the weight room.
Definitely. So speaking of struggle, we'll go with just being like, this is one thing we're going to shift into a bit of like lifestyle stuff. And like one of the questions that comes up is like with struggle is waking up early in the morning. Like I know we get up early every day and it's easy to post something like 5 o'clock, we're up again. But more than anything, it's discipline with that. So one question to Tony, like what does your typical Monday look like? And like as someone who is in that kind of leadership successful role, what does your day look like? And then to the everyday person, like explain how waking up early or going through these things isn't always like high energy. Like people always talk about like, oh, it's so easy to get up at 5 a.m. and do work, when realistically it's like, well, no, it's not. But once I'm up, I'm productive. So walk us through like a Monday morning.
Yeah. So I've had the luxury lately of working with a bunch of killer guys. And I think I'm going to start a group with a bunch of women soon. And one of the things I've tried to implement with them is, or have them try, because it's different for everybody. But for me, and I know I saw a few people, Dave Hawes, some Bobby Tran, guys who have been on this podcast. They believe very much in getting up early, just like I do. And they like to do their meditation, their journaling, get their fitness in the morning. For me, I'm a little bit like a Jimmy Mack. When I wake up on Monday morning, I'm fucking chomping at the bit to dominate this week. And it starts for me on Sunday night, because Sunday night is where I sit down, I plan, I prioritize, I make a big list, I do some quadrants, all things that I'm working with, like with these guys I'm coaching, and we prioritize what we're gonna do, and then I kind of have it laid out. So when I get up, 5 a.m., first of all, I've set some rules in my life, some standards, and one is that I will not hit snooze. And it's a rule to me, and if I do it, it's gonna cost me in some kind of way. Means I gotta, buy Danny flowers or some kind of rule. I'll throw something out there different all the time if I do hit snooze. But I get up, I hit that snooze, it sucks. For 15 minutes, man, it sucks. Like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm not that raring to go at 5 in the morning that I want to get out of bed. But I get up, I already have in my office set up, so I'm ready to win. Because on Sunday night, I set up myself up for success. I've got the big glass of water. I don't start with coffee, even though you guys, if anybody knows me, I drink more coffee than almost anybody. But I get up and I chug water because I know that's a weakness of mine. So if I get up and I chug that water, the reward in a couple hours when I've got my work done is going to be coffee. And I tackle the 1 or 2 biggest things in my week immediately. So I start my day. Some people take joy in starting their day with that meditation and getting themselves centered or whatever they're saying there. For me, I can't get centered until I get ahead. So I'm ahead. So by 7 in the morning, I've hit 2 or 3 huge things in my week already. So I've started the week off with a win. And I do that every single day. Then at 7 a.m., generally that's when my kids get up. And I get up and now I'm ahead, man. A lot of times I'm waiting for them to get out of bed. So that instead, and during school is a little bit different, but I found like if I don't do this, during school, I'm rushed. I'm getting up at 7 with them. I'm behind. I'm trying to get their breakfast. So now I'm cooking breakfast. I'm cooking some meals. And I'm ahead of myself. Then at 8 a.m., get them on the bus, or they go and play with Danny or do whatever they're going to do. And I'm back to work for a few hours. Then 9 a.m., I'm generally meeting you for a workout. By 10 a.m., I've accomplished like 7 hours, and I've got my big things done. I've got my time with my family, some dedicated time where I'm no longer stressed or distracted. I've got a little bit more work done, some lower priority things that I can get done quick, because my brain won't be, I got my coffee in, I'm gonna have my workout by 10 a.m. And those things have just changed my life. My productivity has gone through the roof. The way I feel has gone through the roof. And then later in the day is where I'm gonna do some reading. I don't meditate often, but that's where I'm gonna do some reading, some journaling, some things like that. And that's my recipe for success in the morning.
And now you're ready for things that come up. Like you see it, like I know I've been in habits of that too, is like, you're like, hey, I have to get this done tomorrow. And then if you're up at 5 and you get basically your main things done before 10 a.m., when anything that happens randomly in the day shows up at 11 or noon, and now it's like, oh crap, I got to go do this for 4 hours. And it throws you off the whole schedule. So if you get all that done before, you're ahead of the game. And I think that's a big part, is getting ahead of those potential whatever's coming up throughout the day.
And I've done it the other way, and you hit it right there. I've done it the other way, where I got up and I read a few chapters of a book and self-development, or spend some time meditating or stretching. A lot of times I do a little bit of mobility while I'm getting myself together. I will do some mobility if I'm sore in the morning for 10 minutes before I get going. But for me, if I center myself and I sit and I relax and I read in the quiet and I have my coffee while the kids are asleep, then when the kids wake up, I'm thinking about all the shit I gotta do during the day. So I've like found my like chi or whatever you would call it, and then I'm like just worried about what's coming. So for me, I've worked against how I work in my brain, and I feel like you're the same.
No, I'm not. I'll tell you after you're done. Like I wish I could be that structured. I get up super early. I'm up between 5:30 and 6 every morning, and I just know that I have to. If I get some exercise in almost right away, that I'll be good for the day. But I'm not nearly as structured because I'm a scatterbrained mess sometimes. But I do get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'm always doing some sort of exercise by 6:30 in the morning. And I do the same thing where I have a big glass of water, I'll have a quick coffee, and then I'll get a workout in. And once I get a workout in, I have a mental plan of what my day is going to go like. But then I wish I could be a little more structured. I'm not quite as structured, but at the same time, if I don't get my exercise in right away in the morning, I'm kind of useless and unproductive for the rest
Yeah,
of the
you
day.
know what I would say though, I gotta say and I agree with you there. If somebody works like a typical 9 to 5, what Casey and I do not, and you did
Yeah.
as a teacher,
Yeah.
and I used to, I mean, cop's not typical 9 to 5, but I worked a lot of day shifts, believe me, is that I found I wasn't in control of my day. As an entrepreneur, I am kind of in control
Yeah.
of my day. Casey, I mean, you know what you're doing, you know when you have to be in the gym, and it's not these it's not 8-hour shifts of gym work, it's a lot of self-guided work that you know you have to get done for us as the garage gym, but you also have your own ability to plan it. So I feel like the meditation, the like getting exercise in before work, if I was going to work from 8 to 4 at the police station, is important to me because that's the only part of the day I can control.
Yeah.
That's your day, and that's your that's your time, right? And I find like if you start your day off, like one thing if you start, like you said, even with like cooking breakfast for the boys, is like if you start your day off and you're ahead of it and they're waking up and you're downstairs, you got a plate of food on the table, as opposed to them jumping on you in bed, right? Obviously don't experience that in my life, but I could just see it being like in situations where now you're rushing to get somewhere, and like if you're rushing to get to work and then you get to work and now you're all flustered, the first few minutes of your work are already on a bad point, right? And if things start happening, now it's so difficult to get yourself out of that mindset where if like you're ahead of it, you're there early, you've already been up, I've already gotten the emails out of the way that I needed to do. Now I'm at work and something goes wrong. It's like, I got time to do it. It's not as big of a deal as I think. But if you're on your toes and you're already steaming a little bit because, you know, you woke up late, or my rule, I guess, is the second snooze right now. I'm working on the first. But even that, it's just like getting to that spot where you're giving yourself enough time to get stuff done. It just makes such a difference in the day. And then one point you made, very little point, is having water ready next to your desk is something I've done for like a number of years, is filling a glass of water and having it beside you in the morning, like next to your bed. Wake up, put your feet on the ground, and just like take that 10 seconds to like slam that water. And it's like, for me, I almost feel myself like wake up through that 10 seconds. Every gulp, I just find like I get more energy, whether it's a placebo or I think it's strict science. But every sip, like I just feel more energetic. And then now like I'm up, I've already got a liter of water in me. Now I can go forward with my day. And it's like such a little thing like that can just start your day off.
So this podcast is about taking action on your weakness. That's what this whole thing is about, right? So my weakness is getting my water in. So take action against it. One, warm water is easier for you to drink. So room temperature water is going to go down quicker. I won't even get into the science of how it gets through your body faster, but just plain and simple, easier for you to drink. So we talked earlier about working out. If you enjoy it, you're going to do it. So if that's easier for me, it's going to get done. Another thing is like holding off on that coffee for me. It's like I'm like Pavlov's dogs, man. Like I'm very big on like I need reward, and it's like a personal reward that now at 6:45, 7 when I've got all that stuff done, that coffee hits brew. I got some music playing. I'm listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I'm cooking some breakfast for my kids. Simple problem, simple solution. So many people say, you know, I'm so rushed in the morning, I don't have time for breakfast. Get up half an hour earlier. Simple problem, simple solution. You know, Jason said, somebody put, what if we don't have bands? Wasn't that his like post yesterday from Westside Tactical? It's like, well, what if I don't have bands? How can I follow this program? Get bands. Like, you know, like it's really fucking simple, man. Like find your problem and like then build some rules in your life to counter it. So at nighttime, I'm setting up my water, but I'm not just setting up my water. I'm also like taking a minute. So my first 2 or 3 tasks that I'm going to get done from 5 to 7 in the morning, I'm scripting them a little bit. I'm actually going to the extent where I open my computer and I have a couple of notes. So if I'm going to be writing posts, for example, or you write a lot of newsletters for ETS, I got a bunch of posts, like so that when I come, it's not like right in and I got to figure out where I'm at. It's like it's there, it's ready. I've made my life easy. The only part, the shitty part, is getting up. By the time you get to the toilet and you get that pee out, you know, and that's where you start to shake off the cobwebs, go all that water, splash some water in your face, and go.
I don't really have a problem getting up. It's just, you know, on exercise, but me, it's just finding that structure, which scatterbrain sometimes.
So then what does your day look like, Jimmy? Because I know you're a bit different in the mentality of like I know you have no issue getting up and being fired up and ready to go. Like, so what do you do to like, you know, you have tasks to get done that day. what are kind of things that you try to do, like instead of if it's not right in the morning, how do you make sure that it gets done that day?
I'm big for the way my brain works is I'm constantly not daydreaming, but I'm going through things in my head a lot, and my head's always thinking about things. So when I get up, my typical day during the school year is most days I'm going to get up, get to ETS, and get a workout in. And even if I have to work out if I have to start work at 6. I will try to get to ETS by 5:15, 5:20 at the latest, and then I'll get a half an hour workout in before 6 o'clock, and then I will be at ETS from like 6 until 8, and then 8 o'clock I get organized for my first period. I'll kind of put the workout of the day on the board or whatnot, and then I teach until 2:30. Teaching, we're fortunate we get some breaks built into the day
teams until 2:30.
Yeah, no, I'm in the picking teams is in the gym class, but in the
school board, just give me a joke.
In the ETS, it's like dialed, and then but teaching wise, we do get a prep period, so I'm able to be productive during that prep period and get some stuff done during that time, and then if it's during football season, right after practice, I have football practice, and I'm either at ETS or coming home, and that's sort of my way to, then I have to kind of dial my brain down a little bit because it's nothing but, high energy in the ETS. It's high energy teaching phys ed class all day long. Then you go to football practice. It's super high energy there. My big thing is trying to be able to get my brain back down and relaxed as opposed to just getting in, because I'm in overdrive almost all day long.
No, I agree. I'm similar to that in the way of like my struggle is at the end of the day trying to settle down.
Yeah.
And then again, things just working on that is just trying to find things like reading or something to kind of concentrate all my focus on one thing helps me
let's
slow
talk
it down.
about Casey, because I've watched you. I mean, it's not, 2 years you've been around here?
About that.
And we spent a great deal amount of time together. And you're a good example of how to manage up. So you and take control of your life at the same time. So one thing that Casey does, and one thing we did here at Garage Gym, and I would recommend to a lot of people, we do it with ETS, is we've moved all of our business to like we use WhatsApp. But basically the idea is anything that's not going to be like where your mom and shit's going to be messaging. We wanted to move that messaging for work in a place where everybody who works for us knows like that's where the messages for work are. So you have control of when you look at those and when you don't. So having a business email and a home email, having the business. And so I know that Casey at night, you don't have alerts on. And I'm that guy, like, and I tell my team actually not to have their alerts on because I don't expect them. When I think of something at 5 a.m, they're getting their message, right?
Yeah.
And their emails. So I don't want them to have notifications on. I want them to have notifications on when they're working, because you guys have a lot of freedom pre-COVID, post-COVID. You have a lot of freedom to do what you want as long as the work's getting done. So, and you've kind of trained me to know that, like, and I've started to cheat it a little bit lately, and I actually apologized to you the other day when I sent you a work question on your iMessage. Because if I'm going to ask Casey to go for a beer, I text them. Or, hey, bro, meet me for a workout. That's a text. Or what do you think about this? Like, from a business standpoint, shouldn't go on that text. And he's kind of trained me that I know that, you know what, if him and Nikki's the same way, she doesn't answer me for a few hours because she's not working. Like, it's just, I know I need to get an answer from you, in a reasonable amount of time. Otherwise, I would have to talk to you as an employer. But that's a great way to train up and to take control of your life. And I think you've done a great job of that. And you seem calmer for it.
Yeah. So I think a big thing was like this all mainly stemmed, especially when COVID kind of hit, we were nonstop.
We were working.
Right? We're like, now we've turned from a gym to a tech company. We've got, we're in here at 5:15, 5:30 every morning. We're working for about 6 hours. Yeah. We're here for about 6 hours, and then we're supposed to go home for 4 hours, and then we work another 3 or 4 hours, and then we're supposed to go home, but we end up sitting here and we're having a beer. And it was just, there was no point of the day where I could shut off. And then now little things that shouldn't bother me are, because it's like, okay, I've worked for 6 hours already. These are my 2 hours off. People keep messaging me about stuff, and like, I don't want to respond, but I've already seen it. So I feel guilty, just like, I have the answer, so why not just send it? And I wasn't able to shut off. So I kind of created a schedule kind of in my own mind, or at least I know I message it to the team, basically being like, if it's work related, send it to me on this platform. So like our WhatsApp group. If it's pressing or if it is something you need to get a hold of me, text me or call me. And then if it's something that can kind of be put on the back burner, make sure it's in an email. So then now I know if I'm getting, say, a WhatsApp message,
Yeah.
one, I control my notifications. So if it's personal, it's going to come to me. If it's a group, then it's just going to kind of sit. I'll see a notification, but it's not going to buzz my phone or anything. So now I know and I can control if I'm getting a text or a call, this is important to me, or this is on my own time and it's something I need to kind of get to right away. If it's in this messaging system, I know that this is something when I'm back at the gym or when I'm in the office, I will make sure to look at this and get to it. And then if it's in an email or something, same concept is I have my hour to go through emails, respond to that stuff. So I think one thing that is maybe a tactic or a good thing is like either set up those platforms, right? One thing that's great with phones now is you can turn notifications off or on for specific things, and starting to look at that, what's important, what's needs to get to by the end of the day, and what doesn't have to necessarily get in my head. Now you're able to control everything in the way of like, I'm overwhelmed because I'm getting 30 messages every hour.
Well, there's a great saying from, I think it's Eisenhower, what's important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, and I know that's where I get lost very often. And then, again, battle yourself. Find out where your distractions are, where your weaknesses lie. I'll grab my phone with the purpose of doing something productive, and then I see an Instagram notification, and next thing I know, I'm on Instagram for 25 minutes, so I just wasted 25 minutes. But also, being 41 years old with a few concussions, I also have no idea why I picked up my phone in the first place. And so now I've like wasted time and I didn't get my task done. So, you know, I think we
talk about learning. I think I learned a whole pile there because I didn't know any of that stuff existed. I thought every message was the exact same thing, whether priority, not priority. So I apologize if I ever send you.
Whose question was that? Everybody anonymous. I wanted these are good questions.
But it can be the same. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be different platforms.
No.
Right?
I get the whole thing.
I think that's a big part of it. Is like
you've just subdivided those categories in your head.
You feel the guilt sometimes when it's like it's a client or it's not that client's information's important to get to, but a lot of the times is understanding kind of the boundaries, right? And I think that's a big thing when you have a job that doesn't shut off. Is like people get so caught up sometimes in always being there, which is a great thing, and I think it's a big reason why we are where we are. But also understand they know their question might not be that pressing, and as long as it's settled by the end of the day, it's good. So being able to not shut down, but kind of push it to the side in the way of like at 8 a.m., between 8 and 10 a.m., I'm at work, I'm at my desk, I'm at my computer, I'm going to make sure I get through all of these. Now I can give them a better answer and a more friendly answer because I've taken the time to read it, I've taken the time to research it, and I'm not just sitting like halfway through a nap, waking up like, oh shit, here's the link.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now with what's going on, there's a lot of bonus. Like COVID really helps people to be able to work at home, and that's awesome for a lot of people. But it's also opened people's eyes to the struggles that somebody like who works for a person like me, who's like always been pretty lax on when you're working, when you're doing your admin, is that though at that same time that with that relaxed and with that luxury comes this like almost no shut off, because Casey's not necessarily working when Nikki's working, and I'm not necessarily working when anybody else is working. Like, so it's kind of, and you have to like, and we've come to coach each other so that you know, like, hey, I know that if I know right now when Nikki's working right now, but if I message Nikki like most nights and she's on days, there's almost a zero chance that she's gonna answer me. So I know that if it's really important, I gotta, you know, like the other day there was something nobody could sign up for class, kind of urgent because it was happening the next day. I got to get her on the phone, and she's totally cool with that. But if I would have sent her a message about what's the price for the mask we're ordering, I mean, that shit can wait. It's just something I needed to know, and I like over the next little bit. So
and that's something, and like again with that is like with the different platforms, it obviously makes it easier within a team, I think too, because like Tony mentioned earlier, he knows that if it's something that needs to be done right now, like, oh, this has to be done in the next 5 minutes. Texting or calling me, I'm gonna pick up my phone. Because like in my mind, this is urgent, this is red, this is something I need to address right away. Where if I get a WhatsApp notification or an email, when I see my phone go off and it's one of those, I know, okay, this is for my time when I'm working later on. So one thing that I think almost got answered in that whole thing, we had a question. It was, they had personally, one of their clients, they personally hired a life and business coach for the last 6 weeks. At the forefront of every new strategy and new experiences, I'm reflecting on and implementing self-awareness. Now, I'm truly finding that self-awareness holds the key to both success and failures in our experiences. How have you implemented self-awareness as a leader on the TAC team, a husband and a father, and a business owner? So I think this is something we really just almost hammered home a lot right there. What are some experiences? Let's go back a bit. Now these are your experiences now and things that you've learned. What are things while you were on the TAC team did you do or habits you had compared to now? What are things that, one, being on the TAC team helped you with this? And then on the other side, what are things now you wish you could have used during the TAC team?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's got to be one of the guys working with our group is like, I believe that every single problem, even if it's a problem with the team, starts within. When I worked with ETS, it was like, what's your problem? What's your problem? What's your problem? That's what we need to fix first within this business, and then we can fix the business together. And for me, I know for sure. I'm one of those guys that, man, at the start, you think it's kind of fun and you think it's funny that, I'm laying into you a little bit. I'm not easy on the new guy. I want the new guy to kind of, and maybe it's because I was beaten down as a new guy on the TAC team, and like in the olden days, the early 2000s, you really got beaten down in terms of like, they say
you
warriors.
You gotta establish your respect.
Yes, warriors use shame. Warriors use shame to grow their subordinates, for lack of a better word. And I think that I'm good at that. I use the guilt card a lot, and probably too much. And I think that's one thing on the TAC team that I would have been a better leader there had I used more empathy and putting myself in other people's shoes before delivering some of the more like drastic, like, hey, why are you going home, man? Like 25 years we haven't been going home. Like let's be
Not
here instead of like, instead of this is how it is and we're always going to live by these traditions. It would have been better to maybe not use shame so much as like understanding where that problem was coming from, and then relaying, instead of just using shame to like try to get people what I wanted to do, relaying that in terms of like, this is why I need you here. Like your family is not more important than Casey's family and not more important than my family. So you saying that it's families first means that no, it's your family first, not our family first. Right? So if I could have explained that better, I think I would have been a better leader. And I think that some of the things that I probably hear, I know that the customers, I know they're all listening, they're gonna like laugh at this. I've softened up a lot. And I think maybe here I'm being a little bit too much of the other way. I think people come here for a reason because they lack accountability, they lack motivation. And I was always the guy who was very black and white on what's your problem? Well, simple fucking problem, simple fucking solution. Let's work on that.
Yeah.
And I think I need to get back to that a little bit more in terms of leading, not just this team. I think I do an okay job with that with you guys, but the members, rather than just trying, like, I think I'm like, what's those stages, Jimmy? It's like warrior, father, monk. There's like these stages in a man's life. And I think I've moved from that warrior into a father a little bit, and then monk is where you become like that. I might be missing something, right? So I think I need a little bit of edge back, and I think that's what COVID's brought for me. I think I needed this, and I think I'll be a little bit more edgy again.
Yeah, good.
I think that's a big point with that is like, I guess maybe as an employee, from like, I think it's good as an employer, like guilt's not always the worst thing, right? Like if I'm working on a project and something goes wrong, or like I screw something up, having that pressure above me to do better is good, I think. Because it's like, shit, I disappointed, or like I didn't do things properly. Now I want to do more and
make amends.
Be better, right? As opposed to like, I think a lot of times people get so push back in the way of like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then behind the door, I guarantee they're resenting that individual because they keep messing up. When if you just address it and you're like, hey, you messed up, let's fix it. That puts more onus, I guess, on that individual. And because now they're like, okay, let's fix it. And then when they do, they're on a high and they feel better about themselves too, as opposed to just like, oh, I'm doing great when you're not.
Yeah,
and then you don't know that. And now,
well, I think
3
that really
months down,
sparked
you
an
get
idea with me was I talked to actually Casey about this with you in the my men's group this weekend with my media action team, and you can probably relate to this. I'd love to hear your how you think about how your take on this with your son. For me, what I learned from the TAC team, and I really apply here, and I don't know if you notice it, is like the embracing the young lion. So we talked about the warrior, the father thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a really interesting concept I'm listening to in this book, and you see it. Is that like you're the young lion around here, and I'm the guy that's running the pride.
Yeah.
And there's points where you test me. You fight, and you're clawing at me a little bit, and you want to go, and and that's I think. With the Jordan Peterson books and even listen to Danny talk, there's a difference between us and women, and the dynamic I have with Nikki and Steph, like they're giving me too, but the way they do it is a lot different. And for me, it's I've learned, and because I was that young lion bashing at the leader, and that's how I became a good leader. Mm-hmm. Is because I was putting it out there, and I was getting knocked down a lot, and I was learning that there's a lot more to this wisdom that this guy has across from me that I'm giving him credit for, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing is like knowing when with you in particular, and Kieran before you and Kyle before that, is like when, and now Johnny, is when to pull the reins and when to let them go. Or when to let you kind of bite at me and not fight back, and when to fight back. And I think that's like been a thing. And I'm curious because I got sons and I want to know your take on that.
It's funny. This is the speech I gave. I'll never forget it. It's the speech I gave at my own wedding 23 years ago when you're talking about your parents at the end.
You spoke at your own wedding? No way.
And you talk at the end, you thank everybody, and you say, it's funny with parents. When you're a little kid, you grow up and you think, oh my God, my parents are the smartest people in the whole world. They have all the answers to everything. And it's probably like that young lion. They're young and they think that the parents have all the answers. And then you grow up a little bit and you become a teenager. And you're 16, 17, 18 years old, and you're thinking, oh my God, my parents don't have a clue. They don't understand what it's like to be living this world. They don't know. Life back in those days was completely different. My parents were not nearly as smart as I thought they were going to be. And then you fast forward your life a little further, and you're like 25, and you're buying a house, and you're about to get married and stuff, and you're like asking your parents for advice. You're like,
how do I do this?
Fuck, how do I do this? How do I do this? And you go back, and you're like, oh my God, these parents really were as smart as I really thought they were when I was a little kid. And you almost come full circle. So I am probably at the stage in my son's life where he's 18, 19 years old, where he thinks that I don't have a fucking clue about anything. And we do. We'll butt heads about everything. He'll ask me a question about strength and conditioning, and we'll get into almost a pure six brawl over it. And we'll argue on anything from at the beginning of COVID, where we got into as crazy as it was, we got into an argument over, Dad, do you think you could beat a kangaroo in a fight? And then we got into a huge debate about whether or not
my dad could beat up your dad.
Yeah, we're arguing. He didn't think I could beat up a kangaroo, and I thought I could beat up a kangaroo. So it's everything from philosophical discussions to stupid discussions we'll end up disagreeing on. And I do find too with boys and girls it's different. My daughter and I, oh my God, we almost never get into arguments about anything. The odd time, but my son and I will bash heads about different ideas, but then at the end of the day, we'll become best friends again. So,
well, I found with, and I don't know, this hopefully doesn't sound sexist, whatever. Like it is what it is. I found that like with Steph and Nikki, I feel like when we're going through plans with them, and I think it's them actually with the unstubbornness. It's very easy for me to like be like, hey, what do you think about this? And then they're like, oh yeah, okay. And they make and so that it's not sexist, it's actually a compliment. And they're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I never thought of that. And they really easily. But with Casey, it's more like, no, I think this is the right way. And then if it's not gonna be fatal, let's see what he does with it. Like,
yeah.
And Danny's constantly tapping me on the shoulder with Casey and with my sons to do, not that but I kind of treat you like a kid brother. And like it's that same tap on the shoulder where it's like, let him go. And then at the end of it, sometimes he's right and sometimes he's wrong. But then when he's wrong, I do find that like that full circle thing, like you said about the wedding, where it's like, hey, like what do you? And I'm like, man, I've been there, and like this is what I learned from it. And now we both learn, because I learned a little bit from his mistake and how the route that he took. He learns a bit from the scars that I have, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a good thing, like on my side of it is like, you let me, like, whether you think maybe this is wrong, but you give me the opportunity to do it. And there has been times now, and it's like, okay, I run with this now. One, now I'm more passionate about it because I kind of want to prove you wrong, right? It's part of it.
But
At times it works out, and now it's great, and you have the kind of like, yeah, that's right, told you so. But then there's other times where, like, definitely, I guarantee you, it's like, maybe we should do this, but let you run with it, and it doesn't work. And then now I come back to it, and then it's like, oh shit, you were right.
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of like tuck your tail between your legs, and then that's where you come in, I think, as a positive leader in the way of being like, yeah, but we tried this and didn't work. So one, like, there's 3 or 4 points out of that 20 that we can use now moving forward, and you let me run with it. And
you know what? I give you the shield, man. Like, I say that all the time. Like, part of being a leader is being the shield, and it's like, at the end of the day, I'm the one who said go with that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like every, whatever that percentage or that rate of success increases.
Yeah.
Because, maybe it was 10 out of 20 at the first, but now it's like 18 out of 20 of the things you go with. There's more, like you said, 3 or 4 points that are good. Well, 3 or 4 points out of 20 that were good, but now we're at like 18 out of 20 points that were good. And the 2 that aren't are going to be something like simple, like on the 30-day challenge, we're like, hey, we just send people too many messages. We just tried too hard. Like, and that wasn't even something I recognized. Those are like that, and we're learning. So now we're both learning from both ways. So I think that's like crucial to people.
And being in, I guess, for people who might be in my position in things, like the 1 or 2 under that CEO or boss, is like, if you have a good idea, say it.
Yeah.
Right? And run it through your team. And maybe that is the solution, because that the head of it sometimes you'll get blinders, and it's just like, no, we have to do this, because you're invested in this, you're invested in the company and stuff. So sometimes they might be so caught up in, whatever it may be, you have a bit of an outside perspective, and you might actually be the one who can reroute it and do that. So being able to have a voice and stand up and talk about it, right? It helps out. It's like, it's a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
If you throw a touchdown and win the game, fuck yeah, you're an all-star.
Yeah.
If you don't do that great, well, you're the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have won the game anyway.
That's fatherhood, that's marriage, that's everything.
You have to fail. You have to, especially as a leader, you have to allow people to fail. Even as a parent, if you put your kid in a bubble and never allow him to get cut from a hockey team or get cut from a baseball team, you're setting that kid up for a lifetime of failure. Because if you don't fail young, you never learn how to fail. And obviously, in a situation like here, if you never allowed Casey to fail, and you want to protect him all the time, make sure everything goes right, then he's not going to have the courage to be able to speak his mind as freely, because he knows that, oh my God, what if I speak my mind and I fail? Yeah. He's scared to fail. You can't ever be scared to fail. And that goes as a parent, where you got to let your kid get cut. And parents want to go crazy whenever their kids get cut from a team. Fuck, sometimes that's the best thing in the world for them.
Man, I remember it vividly getting cut. And I also think like a lot I've really worked on after reading the Jordan Peterson book, and I don't think I'm a helicopter parent, but you find some of that in you still. And I think like it's become so, the second my boys start to like get at each other, like, hey, you guys cut that out.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I just talked about with me and Casey. That's the young line. That's what they're doing. They're establishing themselves, and we need to let them figure it out a little bit more often. Yeah. I mean, if they're standing at the edge of an elevated fucking position where they could fall to their peril, not the time to do that, right?
No.
But if they're over there on the grass, neither one has a weapon.
Yeah,
it's time.
It's okay.
to
letting them hash it out. Kind of, they're gonna hopefully figure it out on their own. Now they realize they can figure it out on their own without just calling to mom or dad for help. And like, I think a big point Jimmy just made is like, get cut. Like, allow your kid to get cut. Like, the amount of times like you do something, or the amount of times I went up to my parents like, hey, I'm gonna build a ramp in the backyard and ride my bike as fast as I can. And they're probably like, well, that's stupid. And then I do it and I fall 3 times, but that 4th time, land it. Now, like, I have a love for that, and I have competitive drive with it. Like, it's like bringing back to like sports and stuff is like, guarantee you in a game in the little leagues, if I get sacked or if I get smoked by some kid, parents obviously aren't going to like that. But if they were to just pull me out of the sport because it's dangerous and now I'm potentially, broke my arm or finger, now I've never gotten to experience a comeback and I never get to move forward from it.
No, when I was a kid,
Siddle, she came in here the other day. She gave one of the most. She's so inspiring. But like the biggest takeaway from Mackenzie for me was her talking about like playing baseball with one arm. Because I'm like, I can't even coach my kid to hit with two arms. Like, like how is this happening? And take away that her dad's a Major League Baseball player, but like one of the things Mackenzie said is like my parents just let me go figure it out. If she went to put on her water wings and they wouldn't let her jump in without water wings, but they let her figure out how to put the water wings on. Like, I don't know, that's a real example. That's what I was taking away in my head was like, instead of being like, oh, no, come here. Yeah. Let's figure, sorry, for everybody who doesn't know, Mackenzie has one arm. So.
One hand.
One hand. So instead of like, going every time and likely, like this is just the one example, putting a water wing on, they let her put it on. Like, and I think like that's where a lot of us in today's day and age, my age of parenting group, maybe not so much yours, and it keeps getting worse though, is that we're always trying to put the water wings on our kids, and I think that's a great analogy of that is like, or metaphor, don't let your kid jump in the water without the water wings.
Yeah.
But you don't have to put them on them. You don't have to put them on them, you know? Like
when I was a kid, my parents
pushed you in the water.
Threw you in the pool.
Yeah, it was kind of close. It wasn't throw me in the pool, but
if he's not purple yet, don't pull him out.
How long is the story where we don't have to worry about the
20 seconds.
No, where we don't have to worry about CAS. So
no,
it's far enough removed.
It's far enough removed. Yeah, the statute of limitations.
Yes, that's what I was going for.
So it was a Saturday afternoon. It was the day, you guys probably don't remember it, but Evel Knievel tried to jump the Snake River Canyon in Colorado in the rocket, and it was like 1975, 1976. So I'm
don't remember
7.
that one.
Even I wasn't on board.
Yeah, I was like 7. Got up. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drive my bike. We lived on Laurier Drive, big front porch. I was like, I'm going to drive my bike off the front porch. So I told my mom, go and drive the bike off the front porch. My mom was like, you're an idiot. You're not going to drive the bike off the front porch. She watched me do it. I had no brains as a kid. I had no concept that when you drove the bicycle off the front porch that you had to like even pull the handlebars up. So I literally just drove the bicycle right off the front porch, boom, straight down. My face went right over the handlebar. I broke my nose. I was pulling rocks out of my face with a gravel driveway. I bet I was pulling rocks out of my face for 3 weeks. My mother never said one word. No, you can't do that, Jim. You're gonna kill yourself.
So here's the question now. When you bike now and you're going off the curb,
always pull
those handlebars up?
Yeah, pull the handlebars up
right?
all the time now.
Outrageous of an example as that is like, that's the thing is like, you can tell people not to do it a million times, but until they experience that fall on their face, maybe not so extreme.
It's so wild.
It's not gonna clue in because
Did you grow up in the bike? Did you wear helmets on bicycles?
Jesus.
I did till I got down the street and out of my parents' view. Then I'm gonna take it off and I'm gonna put it on the handlebar.
It didn't exist. My boy the other day, I'm like, hey, go put your bike away. It's gonna rain, right?
Yeah.
So he goes out to put his bike away, and I see him with I'm like, he's a little bleach blonde with his like faux hawk. He's like chilling.
Yeah.
Riding with no
waiting
helmet
for the
on.
ladies to walk
and I'm
by.
like, he's got to go 20 feet, and I could feel this anxiety in my chest because it's become so like ingrained in us. And I'm probably
I don't think you could buy a bike helmet when I was
probably
a kid.
gonna get ripped on for this, but like it's like, oh my god, like okay, like he's gonna be fine. Let him go instead of yelling at him. Like that's his like, and you could tell that was his like little like we talked about. That's his little claw. Mm-hmm. He was like putting that little claw out, seeing what's gonna happen, and like you gotta kind of respect him for that. You protect him, but respect him.
And that's pulling him in. So like as a parent now, like talking about this is like now you see him, like he bikes down to the end of the driveway, right? And for like a few days or whatever, you're probably gonna call him at the end of the driveway, and then he's gonna go around a little bit further and call him in, and eventually he's gonna get around that corner out of your sight. And it's like, so what's your perspective on that? Like, how do you handle that moving forward?
So for me, that's it comes down to how we run everything here and how we run stuff on the old team and it's ownership of the problem. So for me, like yelling at him when he's on the bike was going to accomplish nothing. And one, I might scare him, make him fall. He's 20 feet. He's probably going to be fine. When he gets off that bike, the conversation is, hey, this is why we wear a helmet. Okay. And like the likelihood of you falling, it really doesn't matter if you're falling. If you're only riding, like most people get in car accidents 1 mile from their house.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're just as likely to fall on your driveway as you are out there on the sidewalk. and this is why we wear the helmet. So he understands the problem. He takes ownership of the problem. And then I one up that with your little brother. You love him a lot, right? Yeah. Well, he watches you and he does what you do. So let's set the example, be the leader for him. And then now he has ownership of that problem. And I think, well, we'll see. Probably he's got no helmet on riding around right now. But we'll see how that goes. So that stands to be tested.
Good. It's great. I think that's
a wrap.
That's a wrap.
That was a
Good.
fun.
That was fun, yeah.
episode,
We're all
man.
over the
Where we're
place.
going. Good job, Case.
Covered a lot.
Yeah, cheers. That was good.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.